The Town are back in action on Saturday afternoon when Hull City are the visitors to Kenilworth Road as we look to put that debacle at Middlesbrough behind us. Alongside me to preview what we hope will be 3 points for the Hatters are the Lutonian journalist James Cunliffe and Town fan Dan Barratt-Davis is with us. Gents, all we ask is it's a heck of a lot better than the last time.
Couldn't get out much worse.
What he said.
Hopefully.
Indeed so, yeah. We'll preview the game and look ahead to everything that's coming up right after this intro.
For me, it's the people and the spirit of the people as well.
I love this town. I love this town. I love this town. You know what I love about this town is actually you. Everyone in it has got these massive souls.
We're Luton people, and that's what we care about.
Hello everyone, welcome along to another episode of the Luton Town Supporters Trust podcast, the longest running Luton Town podcast, which shortlisted for the Best Football League podcast in this year's Football Content Awards. This season we're sponsored by Solid, providing opportunities, provisions and assistance so our academy can fulfil their potential. As I mentioned before the intro, we are previewing Luton Town versus Hull City, suddenly a really big game of football in the Championship, certainly for the Hatters. And I've got Jimbo and I've got Dan alongside me to do that. If you haven't got a ticket to the game, which is 3 o'clock, a rare bird of 3 o'clock kickoff on Saturday, no UK TV for this one, so you'll need to fly overseas if you want to watch it, unfortunately. Gents, well, before we get stuck into the whole game itself, I just want to reflect on the last podcast. In particular, a thanks to everyone out there who has sort of commented on the last episode. It was a tough one for me and Jimbo to record, obviously a tough one for you guys to sit through and watch. But we've had an overwhelming number of comments, the majority of which said we gave a fair and balanced opinion, which is generally what we always try to do here. And we really appreciate your comments. You know, we're not just saying that. It's on the YouTube channel. On that particular podcast, and you can go and see for yourselves if that's what you want to do. But we're really appreciative of the support, aren't we, Jimbo? Because it was a tough one to record. We're passionate Luton fans. We don't really want to have to say things in the tones that we did, but it had to be said.
It wasn't fun. Well, it wasn't nice. But you know, it was a terrible performance. So yeah, thankfully the people that have watched it, and there are a lot of you, so thanks for that as well. Yeah, most of them are good comments on there, which is, you know, unusual for the internet in this day and age, isn't it? So, thank you very much.
Well, let's just hope that never has to happen again.
Indeed, yeah. We're all, here to all of that, that's for sure. Hull City. We'll preview the game, but we should say that we're recording this on a Monday night. At the moment, Rob's still our manager. We weren't sure if he would be. He is. If by the time you watch this something has happened and that's not the case, then pretty much the rest of this podcast is going to be null and void, has to be said, because we are going to work on the background that he is still our manager, even though we've had no confirmation either way since then. And of course, if anything does change, then we'll react to that in another podcast, as we said last time. But it's weird, isn't it, that here we are 9 days after that Middlesbrough debacle where you and I, Jimbo, thought that Rob was saying goodbye to the club. Other journalists certainly thought that. And the general perception was that. I mean, there's a narrative out there, isn't there, that the club's communication has kind of bunkered down. And by saying nothing at all, it's kind of not doubled down on it, but it certainly hasn't done anything to change that narrative. Now, I wouldn't expect the board of directors or anyone really to come out after every single Luton loss and react to it. But that wasn't a loss. That was a series of events that wasn't good. And of course, the interview that was given by Rob afterwards, you kind of expected some sort of clarity either way by now, and we've not really had it. So we're kind of recording this podcast, scratching around in the dark a little bit.
Yeah, we're a bit in limbo, obviously. I think you can sort of surmise that he's still the manager now, or they would have said something, but, you know, we don't know. I think when he came out and gave the interview that he did to most of the media, I think most people assumed that not just Luton fans. Obviously, if you read the Football League paper or the EFL podcast, ex-professionals that have played the game and know the score and these sorts of things have all said similar things. So, yeah, it did feel like a bit of an end, and then nothing came of it, which is good. And, it's good because we want him to stay. You and I, we've been very public. We want him to stay. We want some things to change, obviously, and every fan will have their own individual thing that applies to as well. That's opinions. That's being a football fan, isn't it? But you've said all season along you think he's the man to do it, to turn things around and stay. And I don't think that changes. It's just that people in this day and age want the clarity, and when nothing is said either way, and you're right as well. They shouldn't come out every 5 seconds and say he's okay, or he's staying. But people fill the void with wild stuff sometimes, don't they? And that, I guess, that doesn't help either. So it maybe it's a sort of damned if you do, damned if you don't scenario. To just hope that when the press conference for the whole game happens, I'm speaking to Rob Edwards and not someone else.
Yeah, indeed. I think the fact that there was a 2-week break is why a lot of people would have expected some sort of clarification either way, or even, when all that silly nonsense came out in the last international break that Rob had quit, there was immediately a tweet put out of, here's Rob training, preparing for Watford. Even if they went down the route of giving him last week off, like we kind of suggested might happen just because of the way that the fixtures have fallen, it's Monday today, they would be back in training today and still absolutely nothing. Obviously, we're recording this on a Monday night, slightly earlier than what we normally would do for a preview, but Jimbo and I are high-fiving it up in the old Spurs sponsors lounges and things on Thursday night at the Football Content Awards, as we said at the start of the podcast. So we're slightly earlier than we would be. But yesterday it was Rob's 2-year anniversary, not a dicky bird from anyone. I would say it's mixed messages, but it's kind of no messages at all. And I don't think it's asking too much for Rob's our manager. We've addressed those comments that he made after the Middlesbrough game because they did need addressing, because too many people assumed that it was him resigning without actually going through with it. He's our man. He's going to be taken forward. January is on the approach. He's going to lead us into 2025 and beyond. Funnily enough, we're going to talk about a club who've done exactly that this afternoon. So I think when you've got a transfer window and you've got 2 weeks without a game and it can't be put right immediately, I think then people can expect some sort of communication. Now, it might be that they're still working on a severance package. It might be that, that's happening. It might also be that there's not going to be a statement or anything. But as I say, I don't want fans and everything pandered to every 5 minutes. I don't, the board have got more than enough on their plate to do. But I think on this occasion, supporters are merited in asking what the hell's going on, because it's just absolute silence. Silence is either golden or it's deafening.
Yeah.
There's no in between, and people are trying to guess which one it is, and it can't help anyone.
No, it doesn't. And I must admit, I'm like you guys. I thought Rob was basically saying, "I'm done. I'm checking out here," and his post-match interview after the Middlesbrough game. And yeah, it's been silent. Whether I think they've probably done that deliberately. I mean, only they know what their motives are behind that. It does frustrate supporters because we want to know what's going on with the club, and the club have been really, really transparent most of the time since they've took custody of the club, and with unladen success as well. But I think it's a real test for everybody now, from the fans, the board, the players and the staff. Test the character when shit's hit the fan. They need to react and try and turn it around as quickly as possible, because it's starting to get ugly out there, and we don't want that. We don't want another repeat of the Middlesbrough game. We want to start getting results, and hopefully it starts Saturday against Hull. But we've got to address the problems and deal with it the right way, and I think they're trying to do that. I don't think there's a right or wrong way to deal with it, because if we did, then you've got an abundance of hindsight, which we don't have. which is a wonderful thing. I mean, is it right to sack Rob? Is it financially viable? Is there someone out there we can get in the meantime? He's just signed a new deal. And if you're going to get somebody in that's going to pick the ship up a little bit and steer it in the right direction, you've got to be paying. You've got to pay for that knowledge and that person to come in and do it. So, or do you stick with him and just say, look, you got us up to the Premier League, you got this season to sort it out, and then we'll talk in May or something? It is tough, but yeah, I mean, at this very moment in time, it's really difficult to know where we stand as a football club. Is he our manager? Is he not? I mean, they've not said anything, so yeah, I suppose he is at the moment. But
will he be Saturday?
Yeah, well, this is it. We don't know.
That's the question, absolutely. I mean, I made it perfectly clear in the last podcast that we did that Rob's still the man for me. Is he still the man for you as a Luton fan?
Yeah. Do you know what? After Middlesbrough, I'm not going to lie, I was pissed off. I think we all were. I was upset, and I thought, do you know what? If he goes now, he goes, and let him go. But the beauty of the international break, and I've got a lot of things to say about the way the Football League's structured this year. In that respect, it's kind of given me a bit of time to sort of calm down and think, well, hang on, there's no point getting all hot air about it. Yeah, we're passionate and we want the club to do well, which is why we get emotional and we get upset and we say things that are a bit rash and react in certain ways. And having a 2-week break kind of helps you calm down a little bit and look forward to the next one and just hope that we're not going to go through that again. But yeah, I think we should stick with him for now. I have my reasons for that. I just think that, who's out there? I don't really know who's out there who can come in and
this is something we
do this job.
discussed in the last one, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Because Coventry had just got rid of Mark Robbins, and the bookies list of names, half of them were fanciful, and the others you're like, well, don't really fancy any of them really. So, and
this is
that's
it.
where we are.
And you always get people like John Terry and Sol Campbell thrown in, which I don't know why. I think they're just there to entice idiots that think they'll actually be given a job.
Yeah, I mean, the overwhelming sort of belief is that Coventry are going to appoint Frank Lampard. Me personally, I still think that that's a smokescreen for them to appoint someone else, and they're using his name to keep everyone's attention diverted elsewhere. I mean, it's come out that Ruud van Nistelrooy's applied for the job. Whether he gets it or not or whatever, it is entirely. But it wouldn't be the first time a football club used a big name to sort of take the scent of what they're doing away from whilst they're negotiating with someone else. So whether Lampard's the next Coventry manager or not, again, we went through the profiles of managers that could replace Rob in the last podcast, and we're of the belief that it can't be someone who's inexperienced, and that would take Lampard out of the equation for us anyway. That's by the by. We've done all of that. Let's look ahead. Whether Rob is our manager on Saturday, whether Rob isn't, we're going to work along the lines that he is our manager. Before we come on to Luton, let's speak about, well, first of all, this fixture. It's a good fixture really for Luton fans, isn't it? I mean, the club are doing their season review of 20 years ago when we won League One. Well, there was a huge game against Hull City that season where Ahmet Berkovic took the roof off the Kenilworth end, scoring a header in the last minute. One of my favourite memories as a Luton fan, really, really was. Fantastic header. Title decider, many people saw it as, even though it was in March, and the likes. Hugely great memory. More recently, the Great Escape was only a factor because Kazenga Luwa went up there and scored with 4 or 5 minutes to go in the COVID season. And of course, this was the last regular season fixture before that playoff semi-final, the last time we were in the Championship. It's a fixture that's got good memories about it.
Yeah, definitely. 5 games not lost to them, 4 wins in that time. So and obviously the Luwa one for me and for many people was just, it was a bolt out of the blue really, and it was like
literally
it's now on this Great Escape, and we wouldn't have had last season without that goal potentially. It was that massive, and everyone remembers the scenes where players were running down from the stands and stuff where they were watching it from, piling on it. Brilliant scenes, and it's been a favourable fixture for 5 years now. I think the last time they beat us, they came down here with Jared Bowen, who scored at the weekend his first England goal. Him and Kamil Grzycki ran riot, didn't they? That was a 3-0. So hopefully there's no more of that again. But they are, every bit in a bit of bother as Luton are at the moment. So yeah, it's going to be a really tense one, I think.
Yeah, there's no Dan Potts to score a comedy own goal, third goal, thankfully, that's for sure. Yeah, you're right. I mean, that Kazenga Lualua one was during COVID. It was a time at lockdown where families could only get together if they were outside. And obviously my sister is a big Luton fan, season ticket holder and everything else. So we fixed the television up outside and hooked the laptop to it so that she could come into the garden and watch it, because it was in the middle of July then, wasn't it? Hot, sunny day. And when that goal went in, two of us are charging around my garden like, Usain Bolt going around a track. It was absolutely crazy. Of course, I shouldn't do Henry Lansbury a disservice. It was in this fixture at their place the last time it took place that the lawnmower goal happened. Absolute beauty of a strike, bettered only by the celebration. As I say, it really is a fixture that Luton fans have got good memories of, and let's hope on Saturday that remains the case. Jimbo's mentioned that Hull are in a spot of bother.
Yeah.
I mean, funnily enough, before that game, the lawnmower game of Henry Lansbury, they sacked the manager on the day, didn't they, that day? So
that's right, they did, yeah.
They've got kind of history of being basket cases, and I'm amazed that the manager, based on all of the sort of negativity that's around him, is still in place. Tim Walter, I think it is, even though it's spelt Walter. This was a side who last season under Liam Rosenior missed out on the playoffs by a place and looked like they were really going somewhere, and then they booted him out, and you're kind of like, what on earth is going on here? But he's under pressure, this new manager. I have to say, it's always a red flag for me, a foreign manager in the Championship for the first time. I never ever think they work. I think they only work when they come down from the Premier League, a la Daniel Farker or they've got shitload of money to spend, a la Daniel Farker or Marcelo Bielsa or someone of that ilk. This guy, as their owner referenced, hasn't really been supported in the transfer market because they've had to comply with PSR and they're struggling. And I don't know a huge amount about Hull, but the sort of rumblings that I hear, the fans don't like his football at all.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the same boat as you in terms of not really knowing much about what's going on there. I've really focused on what Luton are doing and not doing. But yeah, they're struggling. They're in a similar position. They're just better than 5 goals on goal difference than us at the moment. Hopefully we can extend that and reduce ours so it kind of levels out. But then we're 3 points ahead. That would be great. Whether they'll sack the manager beforehand, we don't know. It might do. I think it's a different owner now. I've
done a little looking at the whole Daily Mail today to look at it, and the owner, Ikali, I think, I can't pronounce his name, something like that. Apologies for my terrible pronunciation. He's come out and publicly backed the manager.
It's an interesting move, isn't it?
It's usually the kiss of death.
Yeah, the owner has gone to the whole Daily Mail and done a exclusive interview to talk about the issues that they're currently facing, and he's backed the manager and said that they'll back him in the January transfer window with some money because they didn't really in the summer, which is nonsense because they did bring in some players and some players from overseas, German league, Bundesliga. So
and some that we know players only too well as well because one of them was from us, which we'll come on to in a minute.
Yep. So they've said it back him because in their eyes they didn't spend a lot in the summer window, but he explained that was because of financial fair play and having to balance the books, which many clubs obviously had to. So it's an interesting one. If you want to go and read it, it's on the whole Daily Mail. It's a big long exclusive piece that the owner's done with them to explain what's going on. So I think that the manager will be in the dugout when Saturday comes.
Yeah, interesting move that, coming out and backing the manager. We know of a couple of people that are coming back here.
Yeah,
we'll talk about the first one, promotion hero Cody Dramé.
Hey.
So many good memories. Let's be honest, we were going nowhere in the Championship until he arrived, along with Marvelous Nakamba, who, funnily enough, we're going to come on to shortly when we turn the attention to Luton. But if he doesn't get a good reception on Saturday, I'll lose all faith in humanity because he was brilliant for us.
He was fantastic. I mean, I'm not sure what the reasons were behind him not signing. I think it was to do with Leeds not wanting him to go permanently and then let him go permanently in the summer. Because that's logic for you in football. But yeah, no, I mean, he's was it 6 months he had, was 5 months with us. he was fantastic. Never let us down. Gave 100%. I do wish he squared that one where he was through on goal against Sunderland rather than have a go. But
I'd rather he scored, to be quite honest.
I'd rather he scored. I mean, anything but what he did in the end. But I'm never going to hold that against him. I think he's a tremendous footballer, really do. And I think, you know, for large parts of this season, I think we've been a little bit weak there in terms of, you know, options. I mean, until recently, I've been a bit unfair on Hashioka, actually, because he's really come into his own there. But don't ask me if I'm going to swap the two, because I don't really know what Drame's been like the last couple of years. But like I say, you know, fond memories of him with his short spell with us at Luton. He was really, really good and did a great job.
And merits a real reception on Saturday.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, I think he'll get one if you know, against Cardiff, there was a reception for your favourite goalkeeper.
Did he drop it? I wasn't at the game. So.
If he was in goal, it wouldn't have finished 1-0. Let's just say that.
0-0, right?
No, he should get. He was a fantastic acquisition. Him and Marvelous really turned that around. You know, Luton were, despite the revisionism since and people saying that was Nathan Jones's side. Nathan Jones's side were 10th in the league and going absolutely nowhere. Admittedly, I'd love 10th in the league going nowhere at the moment, but they weren't. They were nowhere near promotion, and Edwards come in and turned that around with some bold decisions. You know, when there is a lot of revisionism about him. People talk about Edwards' decisions now, but that doesn't take into account in that championship season when, you know, in that first home game against Norwich, when Luton went a man down, put more attacking players on, Corley Woodrow scores a belter, and that kicks everything off. And he made loads of decisions like that in that season that got Luton to where they were. And people forget that a lot, I think. They have recently, and particularly the people that put this season and next season in the same pot and go, he's lost all these games without understanding the Premier League context of it. But yeah, for that, you know, half a season cameo, Drame was absolutely fantastic in the side. So hopefully he's not so good now he's in a whole shirt, because I wouldn't like that.
Yeah, hopefully he remembers being at the Kenny and sticks one in the back of our net for us. That would be nice. One person who's left more recently, every time I've watched Hull recently, Drame's actually played left back, which is a surprise to me as a Luton fan, because when Hull are paying the price that they did for Ryan Giles, and we're led to believe that they matched what we paid for him, which would be circa £5 million. He's not playing very often at the moment, but the one thing we do know from the last time he was in the Championship is he's one of the best left wing backs in the Championship. So if he is in the side, whoever is on the right-hand side of our defence, and we'll come on to that shortly, is going to have their work cut out, because he can be an influential factor down that side if indeed he's picked and fancies the job, which you would imagine, if all the rumours of the way that he left and the reasons why he left and everything else, which I won't cover here, but they're generally out there, if they're true, he'll certainly have a bee in his bonnet to perform on Saturday.
I think so. I think, given the circumstances of his departure and coming back to play against us, I think you're not really up for being a footballer if you're not up for games like this. You know, so he'll want to start. He'll want to shut us up. He'll want to make an impression and prove that we should have given him more of a chance rather than the best left wing back in the Championship, who got the gig ahead of him.
It's very true. I laugh, but you're absolutely right. Statistically, he is.
Yeah, I mean, Alfie's probably not the best but I think he's a better option than Giles. Like, he can defend better. I said it last year when we were having the debate about whether you start Giles or Doughty in that holding role. In the wing back role. I think I said Giles was the best attacker, Bell was probably the best defender, and Doughty could do both just as equally. So that's why Doughty got the gig, and it so proved right.
I think, you know, the fact that his attacking output is so high, even in this division, when other people are sort of putting in one or two good performances and then not, I think consistently he's top of the tree for chances created still, and that's incredible for a team that is down the bottom at the moment.
And of course, we hope he's fit, and we'll come on to that shortly. Who scored? Did the website, the sort of football statistics website, they put a post out during the international break of the highest rated player in the championship for each of the 24 clubs, and Balumi is the one that they rate the highest at Hull. Well, he's touch and go with a knee injury, so that'd be a touch if he doesn't play. We're led to believe he's more in line to play, unfortunately, than not. There are a list of players that your article in the Hull Daily Mail signal out players in particular who might be back and might not be back, and he's not in the ones that might be out sort of list. So I'm not sure about him. But I'll play at the same time as Luton. I don't know a huge amount about Hull City other than the times when they're on television and I tune in and try and watch them. He's not someone I've noticed as in where he plays and everything, but presumably he's going to be an attacker because, like Dan pointed to earlier, their defence is on a par with ours and that's not very good. So wherever he is on the pitch, it's the person that someone needs to keep an eye on, much in the same way that Finn Azaz was the person that someone needed to keep an eye on at Middlesbrough, and that didn't seem to get through to the people in white.
Yeah. I mean, as it stands at the moment, as we record, they've got 9 players injury doubts, which, we've been there before.
Only 9.
So,
Take 9.
So that's
a luxury.
Yeah. Give us 9.
I think 2 of them are definitely. No, 3 of them are out because 2 of them are injured, and one of them is Oscar Zambrano. Dodged a bullet there, didn't we?
Yeah, but we couldn't. We had to sign him, don't forget. We couldn't believe it was the world's worst move ever not to sign him. Maybe, just maybe, the people behind the scenes knew exactly what was coming in that direction, and you've got to give them a bit of faith and a bit of trust that they know what they're doing.
Too right.
Well, the rumour about Oscar Zambrano went on regards to Luton longer than it was ever a viable thing, as far as I'm aware. They went out there to look at him, yes. Phil Chappell went out there to look at him, but they went to other countries as well to look at other players, and he was one. It was just so that the Oscar Zambrano's club president kept speaking about it and kept bringing it up. But as far as I'm aware, the interest died off long before.
Wonder why their club president wanted rid of him. But yeah, you're right. He's definitely out. That's a good thing. That can only be a good thing because he is one player who, when I have seen them, he controls the centre of the park. I mean, whenever you think about a Luton game, you're worried about the centre of the pitch, right? Particularly whilst we don't know what's going on with Marvelous Nakamba. So anyone who's out from the centre of the park, that is a right touch. So he is out. He's a 2-year ban. He's copped, isn't it?
16-month ban pending an appeal, as far as I'm aware at the moment.
Yeah,
but yeah, that's a massive bit of time.
If you're Man City, that's nothing. You just come back next week.
Well, that's allegedly as all of it is, but yeah, I mean, listen, that had the potential to be the one that popped up in the top corner and score the win, as it does with Ryan Giles, and you're kind of like, please, footballing gods, send a different narrative down for this game because none of us need Ryan Giles scoring the last minute winner to win the game. That's just not what we want.
I was going to say not Jame as well, but then
I was going to
say that one he missed against Sunderland makes you think otherwise.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, listen, if Dramé does score the winner, at least he served us a term, whereas everyone with Giles in particular are like, why did we sell him? Blah, 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 blah. Why is he not still our player? Blah, blah, blah. And if Alfie's not fit on Saturday, people will be asking again why Ryan Giles isn't still our player, because we could have had him at left wing back. Look, we've done it. We did it all at the time. We don't need to bring up old news. They're not in good form though, are they? They've only won 3 games all season. Even we've bettered that. They must have drawn an awful lot to be level with us, because we've drawn 3 games. So presumably, obviously they've drawn 6 games, haven't they? Yeah. But so they're not in good form. Now, I'm not for 1 minute suggesting this is a must-win game. Cracky, we're in November. This game takes us past the end of the first third of the season into the second third of the season. However, you have to appreciate that the next 2, whether Luton are in absolute flying mood or whether Luton are in struggling mood like they are right now, there are no guaranteed points in those next 2 games. In fact, 8 times out of 10 we go to Leeds and lose. 7 times out of 10 we go to Norwich and lose. Now, I know we went to Norwich last time we were in the Championship and we won, and that was all credit to it. Amazingly, Alfred Doughty played central midfield that day. It was a debut for the club, wasn't it? There's lots have changed in those 2 years is my point. But there are no guarantees to go to Leeds and or Norwich, regardless of the fact it's a 3-game week and the schedule and this, that and the other, and we're going to have to come on to that again because it is still a factor. Wednesday night onto Saturday with 2 away games as well in particular, there are no guaranteed points there. So you can really give yourselves a helping hand by beating Hull and at least having 3 points from the week going into those 2 games, which they're not free hits because we're not in a situation where they are free hits, but they're hits that if you take them, having had 3 points before it, the blows aren't as damaging as what they could be.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I think most people do. If in the unlikely event of a hypothetical situation where you had to put all your eggs in one basket, this game would be it, wouldn't it? This is the one that looks more winnable, particularly at home. You know, we're all talking about off the back of that trip up to the Riverside and the Borough route. And then,
do you have to keep reminding me of that?
Right, that's the last one, and that's the last of it. But I'm sorry, I'm going to remind you of the Coventry route before it as well.
Please don't.
But
I have to live there.
You make your choices. Right?
That wasn't my choice, believe me.
But maybe this is me just trying to pull out some positivity from the air. The 4 games at home before that were performance-wise, not points-wise, positive. And then those 2 away games were quite devastating. But maybe, and it's going to have to be small steps. I've said this before, you're just not going to suddenly turn it on and be world beaters all of a sudden. It's going to have to be home, focus on the home form, get that right. Make sure that you get the points that you need to there. Cardiff is an example. They're down the bottom as well. Take the points off those teams, give yourself the leg up and the buffer in front of those first, then move on. Unfortunately, we didn't take the points off Queen's Park Rangers early in the season, but you can only change what's in front of you now. And I think maybe that might be where it needs to change first, because clearly there's an issue with going away at the moment, albeit against two sides that really hit their straps on the day. Coventry were very good all game. Middlesbrough were very good for 60 minutes. You're going to have to figure out how to stop that. That's for another day. That's for Wednesday. For this game, this looks like the one to get people smiling again, hopefully.
Yep, let's turn the attention back to Luton then. Obviously, we're right smack bang in the middle of the international break. We don't know how players are going to come back from it. We don't know who and when and where and everything else. What we can say is congratulations to Mark McGuinness for making his international debut. Obviously not the result that he would have wanted. Me as an Englishman, I'm kind of happy with that, but you know, fair play to him. And that would have been a great occasion, marking Harry Kane at Wembley. And if you can't learn from that, what can you learn from? Because that's a world-class striker who only scored a penalty on the afternoon. Congratulations to Marvelous Nakamba in particular for qualifying for the African Cup of Nations. That's all I'll say on Marvelous Nakamba for a minute. And to Amari Bell, who's been involved in, and Daiki Hashioka, who've been involved for their countries. Amari Bell plays overnight as we're recording this. Second leg of his CONCACAF Nations League game, where they're hoping to qualify for the Gold Cup, 1-0 down to America after the first leg. And Hashi, of course, was involved in a World Cup qualifying win at the weekend as well. So really good. And also Joe Johnson, Zach Nelson got minutes for England age groups respectively.
And most importantly, so far, cross fingers, touch some wood, nobody's been sent home injured, so that's good.
Indeed, although the last time McGuinness was sent home injured, he turned into Paolo Maldini. So, you know, that would have been kind of handy if that was the case. And also Ted Mengi, of course, came off the bench for England under-21s in Spain at the weekend as well. So congratulations to all 7 of them. Those that are still to play, please, 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 please avoid injuries, particularly you, Marvellous, because you're in Cameroon on Tuesday. Don't like the proximity of that to Saturday, I have to say. But let's start with Marvellous Jimbo, because we mentioned it in the last podcast. If he goes away and plays 90 minutes for Zimbabwe, questions are going to be asked as to how he can play 90 minutes for Zimbabwe and not start a single game for Luton in the last 6. In fact, I've looked through, he's played a cumulative 90 minutes in those 6 games combined. Now, why are people concerned about Marvelous Nakamba? Well, there's 3 reasons why people are concerned about Marvelous Nakamba. First and foremost, as we referenced at the start of this podcast, he was huge in our rise to the Premier League. He's a great guy and everyone loves him. Every Luton fan loves him, largely for the role that he played in getting us to the Premier League, but also because he's just a bloody good bloke, and Luton fans really appreciate bloody good blokes right now. Why else are people worried about Marvelous Nakamba? Well, let me read out our form with Marvelous Nakamba and without Marvelous Nakamba. So he has started 23 games for Luton in the Championship. I'm not interested in the Premier League. We're in the Championship. He started 23 games for Luton at this level. We've lost 3 of them. Just 3 of them. Now, the first season he was in the Championship with us, obviously the promotion-winning season, he started 19 games. We won 9 of them. We drew 8 if we call the Wembley game a draw, and we lost just 2 of them. This season, he started 4 games out of 15 for Luton. 2 wins, a draw against Oxford, which we were 2-0 up in, and that shambles at Sheffield United, which nobody came out of with any credit whatsoever. So we've picked up 15 points this season from 15 games. 7 of those points have come from the 4 games that Marvelous have started. 8 of them have come from the 11 games that he hasn't started. So Luton's record with Marvelous Nakamba starting a game of football is infinitely better than when Marvelous doesn't start a game of football. So this is why people are constantly asking what's happening with Marvelous Nakamba. You get it yourself. Can you ask Rob? And I'm sure you will do on Friday, in light of the fact that he's gone away on international duty and he's played. Now, no one here is sat here, none of us 3 are stupid enough to think that Zimbabwe v Kenya is anywhere near a par in terms of level of football as Middlesbrough v Luton. No one would think that. It's not. It's Championship and Conference South in equivalent levels. But we're not asking Marvelous Nakamba to do the bits of skill that he's posted on his social media channel over the weekend. We're literally asking him to sit in front of our defence and make sure no bugger can play in front of it. And it's time, looking at these statistics, that if he can do 90 minutes for Zimbabwe, that he starts doing 90 minutes for Luton Town as well.
Well, that's what everybody hopes, isn't it? I mean, when you look at it with hindsight, well, not even hindsight, you look at the team sheet up at, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to mention it again, but the Riverside. It was
starting to piss me right off.
But it was crying out for Marvelous Nakamba to be on that team sheet, considering the attacking stats and the XG and everything that we highlighted in the Borough preview podcast.
Not just we, but Rob highlighted it to you in his pre-match press conference as well. And this was where people are criticising, because when he's coming out and quite rightly referencing how good Middlesbrough are, to then not counter it with any defensive midfielder, least of all the best one, and I've just shown you the results, and they must know the results with and without Marvelous Nakamba. They've got every single number known to man. You don't even have to know the results. You just know from your eye test that Luton are a better side when Marvelous Nakamba is right in the heart of that midfield than when they're not.
Yeah, in fact, it speaks for himself. I did ask about Marvelous, and we got the line that we've repeated, that he can't possibly play 3 90 minutes in a week. And I take
not the one that I said in that podcast. He can't play 3 games in 90 minutes. Whoever flagged that up in the YouTube comments, you're absolutely right. Yeah, and that's how livid I was. I wasn't even making any sense at the time. But yeah, you're right. Yeah, sorry I interrupted you, but you're right.
You've absolutely stung him. I loved it.
Hands up. I can offer no defence. A little bit like our team at Middlesbrough that day. I can offer no defence.
No, but I take that point. If you're having to nurse him back, it was a very serious injury. It was a knee. He's now 30. Was he 31?
Yeah, 31 in January.
30. So, yeah, fine. That's fine. But then to not have started any of the games since the last international break, at least, and only really cumulatively since then, since Watford onwards, has only played 86 minutes cumulatively off the bench, is a bit of a concern. If he can then go away with Zimbabwe, captain the side, and fair play to him, well done. That's a great feather in your cap to get your country to the AFCON, captaining them. And if anybody saw the scenes afterwards, it brightened up my Monday. So this is Monday. Nobody likes Mondays, but the scenes that they put on YouTube where they're in the dressing room singing are joyful. Put a smile on your face if you haven't seen it.
All right, Bob Geldof.
Hey, but Nakamba was in there, front and centre, in the changing room, dancing, jumping, everything. He did the skills that he's posted on social media, which you've referenced, which take a lot of twisting. So presumably his knee is okay as far as Zimbabwe are concerned. So we need to understand now, where does he fit in Luton? Because he's not getting the minutes that everybody might expect. You know, if there's reasons for it, then we need to know. That's a question that will need to be asked. I want to see Marvelous Nakamba in there purely because of that last season that you mentioned and the stats, the last season in the Championship, how effective he was in helping keep other teams out and won a hell of a lot of games 1-0, and a hell of a lot of those were comfortable as well. They weren't getting through Luton.
No.
And the way Borough cut through Luton down the middle at the Riverside was worrying.
Yeah, it was, yeah. I mean, one of those starts that I've referenced this season was a 1-0 win at Millwall, and Millwall didn't even look at the goal until Nakamba went off and Pelly played that silly pass that sent Langstaff through on goal.
Yeah.
Until then, they hadn't even looked at the goal.
No.
Everything will tell you that this side is a better side. It's a more reliable side when Marvelous Nakamba is in it. Now, we've got a defence that's second worst in the Championship. Somehow Portsmouth have conceded more goals than us. I mean, their goalie must have a bad back because I think it's 26. We've shipped in 15, which is a stupid amount of goals, really. Put him in front of it. No one's saying he's got to play every single game. No one is saying he's got to start every single game. But if he can start 2 of these next 3 and we can get something out of him in the other one, and he goes off after an hour in the 2 that he starts, that's absolutely fine, But for the love of God, please help us out, because the defence it's not creaking.
No.
The door's well and truly open. It's leaking like flood water. It's just the floodgates have well and truly opened, and we need to plug them. Now, it's obvious we can't plug them with defenders, or seemingly can't plug them with defenders, so let's plug in front of them and give them some sort of help.
Yeah, I don't think it's been helped by the way the league's set up this year as well, because we've had 2 international breaks. So we've been playing 3 games in 7 days for 2 weeks. They're having 2 weeks off, where Marv's having to go away with Zimbabwe and play the qualifiers that he needs to play, and then come back, and then it's another 2 weeks of 3 games in 7 days, and then another 2 weeks off. I mean, that does nothing for momentum. I know every club in the Championship has to do that, but in Marv's terms, for Marv, he's just come off from a long injury layoff, which we really missed him last year in the Premier League. I know we had Ross and Nakamba in there when Nakamba was fit to sort of plug those gaps, but
He popped up for Belgium the other night as well.
Did he?
Sambi, yeah.
Oh, good for him.
Weren't good for them. They lost 1-0, but...
Well, no, and I know Rob said something about managing his problem to make sure that it doesn't recur again, because the older you get as a footballer with a knee injury, the worse it can get if it flares up again.
And we're all fine with that.
Yeah.
And if that's still the case, we're all fine with it.
I just think...
But it's just muddied waters when he goes and plays 90 minutes on a pitch which can't be anything like the pitches he plays on in the Championship.
No, and I think it's to do with Zimbabwe wanting to go over the line with the qualifiers. So maybe now that's done, and we're not going to have a silly international break every couple of weeks. Maybe we'll start to see Marv a bit more, because the games aren't going to be so congested. They'll be spread out a little bit more.
We need to.
And it needs to happen. I mean, we're coming into the second third of the season now, and Marv's started, 4 matches?
4 matches in 15 he started, yeah.
And like you say, the stat he pulled up a minute ago about how many points we picked up in that time, it is imperative that we get him fit, keep him fit, and get him in that side, because we are struggling. And you notice it when he's not playing straight away. And I remember when he made his debut, I just remember him coming on at the Kenny for half an hour. And he changed the outlook of the game straight away. Plugged everything. I thought, wow, if we get this guy fit.
I just remind you what Tom Lockyer said when he collected the Player of the Season award that season. I shouldn't be up here. I just stand behind Marv and let him do his thing.
Yeah.
He should be up here, and he was only here for half the season. Now, if Tom Lockyer's reflecting that, it's there for all to see. Listen, this isn't an issue until we went and played 90 minutes for Zimbabwe. That's what...
You sort of knew it was going to happen, though.
You did, yeah. And as I say, no one's suggesting for 1 minute it's the same intensity levels as Championship football. And as Dan said, he's played 1 game for Zimbabwe, and we were expecting him to have to play 3 games a week. But he hasn't started any of the last 6. Not like Luton won all 6. Luton only won 2 of those matches. One of those he came on for and shored it up against Watford when we were, 2-0 up and looking to close the game out. Again, he came on and shut the door, and all was well again. Their number 8 was starting to become a pain in the arse, and he snuffed it out straight away.
Yeah.
Even at Middlesbrough when he came on, he came on at 4-0. Azaz was not a factor then until he drifted out and scored that wonder goal, but that's not in the areas where Marv would be dragged out to. That was from a throw-in that he was out there for. Put a stop to all that nonsense as soon as he come on. This is a guy who's, for me, the most important player at our football club.
Yeah.
And
when he's fully fit, yeah.
And I think it's fair to want to find out what the hell's happening, because if we're winning every week without Marvelous, there's not a problem. Take your time in coming back. You're absolutely fine.
Yeah.
You've conceded 26 goals in 15 games. And as I said, the 4 games that we've just started, we've conceded 5 in those, but he wasn't on the pitch for one of the Oxford goals, so 4 in the time that he started. The difference is stark.
It's terrible to see.
We need him at the moment to solve these defensive issues or to ease them somewhat, but it would also give more of a free rein to Tom Krause to go forward, and it gives that platform for the midfield 3 or whoever it's going to be more attacking and not have to worry so much, and then you can do the high press that everybody loves and wants to see, and that's what Edward wants to play, knowing that you've got somebody like Nakamba who can read the game a bit better. So, that's the knock-on effect, I think. But the immediate solve here is come in here and add a bit of solidity, because that's exactly what we need.
Too right, yeah. Let's move on to the other areas of the pitch, and I think all 3 of us are pretty strong that we'd love to see Marvelous Nakamba play. We're going to make changes, aren't we? Because he made changes for the last game, so we will revert back. We're not going to have Jordan Clark. He's suspended, picked up the 5th yellow card in that debacle at the Riverside. We're recording this long before Rob's press conference, and this will be out to you long before Rob's press conference, again, if it is Rob doing the press conference. We don't know the situation with Alfie. Nothing was really said. We don't know for sure the situation with Burke, but he was close 2 weeks ago. You kind of hope that nothing's happened in the foreseeable since then and that he's back. And as you say, no one, as we sit here right now, has come back from international duty injured. And obviously Mads Andersen was on the bench at the Riverside. Long term, I'm still of the opinion that Luton will be better playing a back 4, but that doesn't seem to be how Rob wants to do it, because he's had Amari Bell back now and hasn't really done it. So we've got to assume that we're going with a 3 at the back. If we assume that everyone's fit, so we assume that Alfie's fit, so he'll take the left wing back option, which allows you to pick Bell at centre half. Who's the 3 centre halves that would be best for Luton Town?
Ted and Burke.
And
Ted, Burke and Bell.
Ted, Burke and Bell. Jimbo?
Nothing against McGuinness either. I just think they're a more established understanding.
I think there's a case to say at the moment, and I think this might be a man management one. McGuinness has been part of 2 sides that have shipped 5 goals in 2 games, club and country. Is that going to be a problem? Is that going to affect his confidence? Does he get withdrawn because of that? Because that suggests to me that it would, just on a human nature level, that how can you keep playing and then just every time you turn around a goal goes in? So I'd go
literally.
Yeah, I'd go with what Dan says on that basis. Give him a bit of time out, because look, this is not to dig him out all the time, because he have been really good in those 4 home performances, and we've highlighted that. It's really important.
I like him.
It's really important that the context is there. He's a threat in attacking set pieces as well, and he's going to get one soon. But that's got to be a really devastating blow. It was his Republic of Ireland debut at Wembley, and he grew up in the Arsenal Academy, so not far away from Wembley, and he gets to play against England, like you say, Harry Kane, one of the best strikers in Europe, if not the world. And he's doing really well for 50 minutes until Matey Boy gets himself sent off, and then it all goes to pot. But that's kind of the point, isn't it? That's exactly the mirror of the Middlesbrough game, albeit they managed to keep the goals out for an extra 20 minutes against England, but they're playing really well. 1 goal goes in, goes to pot, and then this is not all McGuinness's fault. I'm not saying that.
The red card changed it.
Yeah, it did. I'm not saying it's all McGuinness's fault.
It wasn't.
He played quite well, as they all did, for 50 minutes until they were reduced to a man. But I'm talking about his own experience of 2 games, club and country, where literally every time he turned around, a goal's gone in. Is that good for him? So I'd go with what Dan says.
Yeah, I would differentiate from what Dan says, and I would have Holmes in the middle of the back 3. I'd go Bell, Holmes, Burke if they're all fit. It has to be Burke. He's the best defender this football club's got by a country mile. Forget the fact that the others have got international honours. If his body wasn't made of glass, he would be a mid-table to upper end of the Premier League defender without even any thought of it. So if Burke's fit, and he was brilliant in that Watford game, he was until he went off, he was absolutely different class in that Watford game. And the intention was on him in that Watford game because of his comments prior to it, after the Sheffield United game, where again he's shown that he wants to be here, he wants to fight for the club and things like that. And hellfire, the very least we need on Saturday's fight, because you know we can't possibly be in a situation where they can be accused of not fighting again after the last game. So I would go with Bell. Just gives us balance. We just look so much better when he's on the left hand side of that back three. For me, Holmes is strong, he's aggressive, he's good enough on the ball, he can do all of the bits, and he hasn't had any international football. He's had 2 weeks without any football at all. If he's not fresh as a daisy after that, then he'll never be fresh as a daisy. And then if Reece Burke's back, Reece Burke just has to play. It's as simple as that. Reece Burke has to play because he's that good. Then we're coming on to the right back. Or right wing back, should I say. Again, you've got the same two options that you had previously. You've got Hashi, probably doesn't give you what you'd want in an offensive point of view, but is likely to give you something in a defensive point of view. And if they've got Ryan Giles, absolutely.
He's getting there. You can see it's coming.
He, as I said in the last 2 podcasts ago, he is following the Issa Kabore route of thankfully not switching off at the back post, but his crosses, at the minute, they're in the Kenilworth end, but they'll soon be in the danger zone. But you got him or you got Victor Moses down that side. Who would we like to see on Saturday?
For me, Hashi. I think he's come out with a lot of credit in these last few performances he's played in his preferred position, which is what we wanted to see. He's fully committed, puts his body on the line. Not prepared to let people ghost past him. Has got forward. His crosses haven't been that great so far, but he's been out injured as well, and he's been having to be a centre back here and there, and so
unlucky not to score the winner against West Brom.
Very. That one against the woodwork, very much so. I'd keep Hashi in. I think he's growing into that role. It'll take a while. But and that's making good strides.
And that's the thing, isn't it? You can't grow into a role if you're coming out of the role. You've got to be built up in time. So presumably it's Hashi for you as well.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I've written Hashi down here. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like Victor Moses. I think he's a tremendous acquisition, and I think if we go to a 4 like you want to do, I think he fits in front of Hashioka.
Oh, well, absolutely. I mean, it's
a no-brainer because Moses can't defend, Hash can't attack, vice versa.
Yeah, I mean, if we go to a 4 and when Rue Waters is back, he's the right back anyway, but that's a different discussion for a couple of months away, that's for sure. Yeah, all three of us have got Hashi and Doughty as right back and left back. Obviously, if Doughty's not fit, we're going to have to move Bell there, presumably, and then we're going to have to sort out who another centre-half is, but we don't know if that's the case. That leaves us with 2 attacking midfielders, assuming that we've got Marvin behind them, and a front 2. Well, the front 2's definitely going to be Carlton and Adebayo, right?
I think so.
Just purely by the fact that Carlton came on and basically kicked anything that moved in a fit of anger, quite rightly so. He will be itching to be the man that leads the team into what will be a reaction, right? We've said it on this podcast for 8 years. Every single time Luton stink the place out, and there's been plenty of times over those 8 years, maybe not to the extent at Middlesbrough, but there's been plenty of times they've bounced back and they've won the next game under Nathan Jones. When they lost 7-0 at Brentford under Graham Jones, they went and won the next game. And even under Rob, they've generally, of course, after it happened at Man City, we lost against Brentford. But you look at the record of teams that lose to Man City and look at their next game. They don't win very many because they've chased the football round for 90 minutes. But in the main, they react. They've done it this season when they stunk the place out against Sheffield United. They went and beat Watford.
Yeah.
When they stunk the place out against Coventry in the second half, they should have beaten West Brom. So we're going to get a reaction. That's an absolute certainty. And if we don't, that will be red flags going up all over the place. But Carlton will want to lead that reaction because he's the leader in that team right now.
Yeah, I think so. There's no, unless he's injured, which, I don't think that was the case. It was just the 3-game week and they rested him.
I mean, he might be injured after he kicked absolutely everything that moved, but...
It hurts when you kick things like that. Yeah.
It does, yeah. And maybe that's why he peed off.
They need that leadership quality, and the fans are going to respond to the way that he did that. Yeah, he came on and he was a bit rash, and you could say maybe deserved to get more severely reprimanded for it. But in the situation that he did it, and the words that we saw him mouth, we're all amateur lip readers in it, we're pretty much certain he said they're taking the piss, and he's gone steamrolling. That's almost English football in a nutshell, isn't it? You go, not having that, in you go, take it out and get some pride back.
Well, it's what made Kevin Nichols so adored by Luton fans, because he wouldn't have took that either. He'd have been sent off kicking someone up in the air, and you know, that, like you say, Morris could or maybe couldn't have done, but that's what he had resorted to. That's how bad it was. Him and Elijah, it's just an obvious thing. We're going to want to press Elijah. Will be his partner. Again, nothing against Jacob Brown.
No.
And Corley Woodrow actually had a good game at the Riverside. 2 of our 3 shots on target came from him, and of course the other one was the goal from Jordan Clark, so he didn't let anyone down either. But, you know, we've had a 2-week break. If our main front two aren't our main front two on Saturday again, you're kind of questioning why. It just leaves the 2 midfielders in behind. As I say, Jordan Clark, not an issue in this game. He is suspended. He's picked up 5 yellow cards. Carlton's on 4. So if he does play, we need him to be really careful on Saturday in particular, because we don't want to go to Leeds without potentially our most profitable striker.
Well, he's picked up an awful lot of bookings because of dissent, and some of them valid, by the way.
I think they're all
pretty
valid.
much all valid, because we've had some shocking referees this year.
I think they are all valid. Yeah, I mean, you know, if referees got decisions right, he'd only be on 2 yellow cards. You know, and if his teammates had performed better at Middlesbrough, he might even only be on 1. He's got Norwich coming up, and that's a big game for him. We know that 2 years ago. So hopefully he can avoid bookings in these next 2 games and make sure that at the very least he gets to Norwich. And then I think we're only 1 game after that before it goes up to 10 yellow cards. So you kind of hope that it's a game after that. Swansea, isn't it? Well, they're just going to pass the ball around all day. So hopefully he can just bide his time there, and we can get him through to the 10 bookings thing. Yeah, in behind there are options. Doesn't have to be Jordan Clark. Funnily enough, I really would play Jordan Clark at home. I think his home form's been absolutely fine. It's away from home where we're struggling, because he seems to keep getting in our way at defending things. But so we got Shandon Baptiste, Tom Krause, of course at Middlesbrough, Shandon Baptiste, Liam Walsh, and Tahith Chong. I'd be very surprised if Tahith Chong's not one of these 2 attacking midfielders. No reasons to take him out, really. Didn't think he was great in the first half, but hey, show me someone who was. But at home, in recent home games, obviously scored the equaliser against West Brom, drove us forward against Cardiff, and particularly if Alf is there as well, they're forming a really nice partnership right now. There's no real reason to break that up. Who goes alongside him? Shandon Baptiste, Tom Krause, Liam Walsh, or even Zach Nelson. If he's good enough to play for England age group, you've got to think he's good enough to play for a championship side now. So let's not forget about him. Who would your pick be, Dan?
Okay, in the holding role, if Marv's fit, he plays. If not, Shannon takes that. And I'd stick Krause in there. Because I think, like James said earlier, if you've got Marv holding things and looking after like the back 3, as it were, that allows Krause a bit more freedom to get forward, and Tahith Chong as well can play off of that as well. And I think there's a lot more to come from him than we've seen. I think he's had to play a more defensive role, because we haven't really had anybody that can do the role when Baptiste has been out as well as Marv been out.
Krause all day long for me. Yeah. At home, he's been fantastic.
He gets it as well, doesn't he?
He does.
He absolutely gets it.
At home, he's been absolutely fantastic. That's not to say he's been bad away, but the way the team is set up, or the way that they've been attacked by other teams, but particularly in the last 2 away games, he's not been able to do any of his good work in those structures, if you like. But at home, when Luton have played well for 4 games, he's been really instrumental in that high press, winning it back, and he's got a goal in him as well. So, and the main thing is he can slide a pass through 4 defenders like nobody's business.
Well, that's what the eye test will tell you, isn't it? That he can't be a factor in the way that team's structured away from home. And yet he assisted Elijah's goal at Coventry. He assisted Chong's pass for the penalty at Coventry, and he assisted Jordan Clark's goal at Middlesbrough. So the last 3 goals we've scored on our travels have all been created by Krause. So yeah, absolutely. Marvelous Krause, Chong as a midfield 3. And of course, James and I have alluded to the fact we'd love to see Shandon Baptiste in here at some point. But what an option to have off the bench, Shandon Baptiste. I mean, when he came on against West Brom, the game changed in an instant, didn't it? If we're doing that again on Saturday, happy days. But yeah, the energy of Krause, the quality of Chong, none of that fancy Dan falling over bit, but the real driving forward quality bit of Chong and the calmness and the protection that Marv brings. If that midfield three can't get us a result on Saturday, we've got problems.
I don't think the midfield has been the issue at home, at least. But with those, with that three, you've got the solidity in Marv at the back, allowing the other two to be more forward thinking. And you almost need to be that at home anyway.
Especially on Saturday. Yeah. There needs to be a reaction from that Middlesbrough game.
Yeah, no one's going to tolerate anything less than really going at Hull. Their form's not great as well. You have to be on the front foot and you have to play some attacking players there, and that makes to the eye, without even looking at any stats, not to play Krause would be an odd choice. Yeah,
it really would. That's for sure. Yeah, like I say, he's got assists, he's got goals. I mean, he scored against Oxford, didn't he? And he's got so much energy. And Jesus, did we need some energy 2 weeks ago? Let's make sure we don't lack for energy on Saturday, Town. So just to confirm, our teams, kind of the only difference is at centre half. The rest of it's all very similar. We didn't mention Kaminsky, but of course it's going to be Kaminsky in goal, assuming everyone's fit. Bell, Burke, Mengi for the boys, Holmes for me in the centre of that defence, Doughty, Hashi, wing backs, Marv, Chong, Krause, Elijah and Morris. Let's have your team selections. Plenty of time to get them in this time. Games kicks off at the proper time on Saturday, and we've got this out to you earlier than what we normally would because, well, Jimbo and I are going to large it up at Spurs on Thursday night.
For some.
Absolutely. We would have invited you, but, it's just us two only, I'm afraid.
Don't lie to me.
You're right. We wouldn't have done. The only thing that's left, the only thing that's left to do is score predictions. Score predictions. I think it's my turn first this week, Jimbo, which is good. There was a lot of work in the group chat, wasn't there, over the weekend? And I nearly nailed my colours to a 3-0 Town win mast, but I've woke up since then and can't possibly go with that. I do think Luton win the game. Jimbo's right with what he said. This is a home and away issue for Luton right now, and at home the issues don't tend to be there. I know we weren't brilliant against West Brom, and I know we weren't brilliant against Cardiff, but the performance was solid enough, and I'll take solid performances right now all day long. And like Jimbo said earlier in the podcast, let's worry about those 2 away games when they come around. I think Town win this, and I think they win it 2-0.
Interesting. Yeah.
Very interesting.
I'm trying to play the footballing gods off against.
I don't. They're no interest in us whatsoever. If they did, I wouldn't have had to have sat at that at Middlesbrough a couple of weeks ago.
It's a long time ago, but
you can't have it always.
Yeah. just in some sort of superstitious nonsense that they don't keep many teams out, so there'll be goals in it. But I just think it'll be a draw, and I think it'll be 1-1.
Oh.
Well, I didn't see that coming.
No, I didn't. I wonder where you're going with that.
Indeed. Dan?
I think it's going to be 1-0 Luton. I think it'd be quite tight. I think just one goal wins it. And to be honest, right now, I think we'd all take that.
Oh, all day long, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going 1-0. So.
Yeah, this doesn't have to look... Of course. This doesn't have to look...
Not sure if I clarified that.
No, that's fair enough.
No, these days
these days it does need clarifying, that is for sure.
Apparently so.
This doesn't need to look pretty on Saturday. This just needs to look...
I don't care how shit it is. Win.
Yeah, this needs to look like we're up for the fight and win the game. They're the two things we ask. Now, if there's a performance on top that's really good, fantastic. But just win the game. Those next 2 games, they just look tough. They're tough. There's no dressing it up, and we'll cover that when it comes along. Win this game of football, Town. Just put everyone's mind at rest just slightly, and who knows what's going to happen between now and Saturday. But just put everyone's mind at rest. Win the game of football. Give us something to build on. There's a lot of teams on 15 points, aren't there? So if we do win on Saturday, we're going to climb up the league in some way, shape. Obviously, we're going to go above Hull. We'll probably go above a couple of others. It will start to look a little rosier. I'm not looking too high up or anything like that. But once
just put that buffer in between those teams that are around you and make that the small step to as a platform to
But
push on.
It's baby steps, isn't it? Nathan mentioned it years ago when he came in, and it still applies. Baby steps, but second quickly.
Yeah,
One at a time.
and then something else that still applies. This is a 2-game league, and we've got so many 2 games coming up so very quickly in the next few weeks.
It's the third game. This is a bloody problem, though. Isn't it?
Yeah, well, but if you've won the first 2,
have
it's
40.
not a problem then, is it? That's
There's another
for sure.
43 involved and all.
Well, indeed. So yeah, that's what we think. 2-0 for myself, 1-0 for Dan, and Jimbo's being a boring bastard and he's gone for 1-1. Let us know your score predictions.
Outrage.
Plenty of time for you to get your score predictions
See what
in
I have to put up
for
with?
this. You don't have to. You could have picked a Luton win.
You could have done. You're only making Rob for your own back, lad.
Indeed, yeah.
I'm making
Let's-
deals with them lot up there.
I just really
I don't mean the barber club.
I just really hope you've nothing to no. I just really hope you've nothing to crow about when we do the review to this on Sunday night.
I do.
That's for sure.
Hey, where's your loyalties?
Yeah,
Hey, it's every man for himself. I want the points.
shambles. Not good. Yeah,
Such a tart.
lots of time to get your score predictions into us. So let us have those. Do you think Luton will win? And as I said earlier, give us your team selection as well. Do you disagree with us? Do you agree with us? Would you play McGuinness? Wouldn't you play McGuinness? Would you play Mengi? Wouldn't you play Mengi? Of course. Would you play Marv? Wouldn't you play Marv? Let's hear your opinions. We really do appreciate all of your comments, all of your views, all of your opinions. We take them all on board and do our best to action them as we can. That's pretty much it for this episode of the podcast. Thanks very much to the Barber Club and the lower level in Luton for hosting our studio. Bad news, guys. We're going to be in here for quite a lot of time over the next 3 weeks because 2 of the 3 of them are 3-game weeks once again. But we really appreciate all of your support, as we do to Sean Grant and the Wolf Gang for our intro music, and to Ed Smith Creative for all the designs that you see on set. From Jimbo, from Dan, and myself, until next time, which will be a review of the Hull City, what we hope will be 3 points against Hull City. Well, Jimbo and myself are going to drink Spurs bar dry. And, well, until then, come on, you atters.
For me, it's the people and the spirit of the people as well.
I love this town. I love this town. I love this town. You know what I love about this town is actually you. Everyone in it has got this massive soul.
We're Luton people.